Good morning. It's Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers. And this is another one of the presentations, podcasts of world history by Tom Padula live on Facebook. And it's program 45. It's the 25th of August, 2022. So it's a Thursday, of course, and I enjoy this hour each week because I can then delve into topics that are not discussed every day. So history is with us, but we live day by day, and that's what happens. So if you want to look back, welcome to Rosemary Vecchia's. If you want to look back into the historical development from the Big Bang Theory to now, you can look up my podcasts. This is program 45. So I've gone right through from the very beginning of time, to the Paleolithic age, the Neolithic stages of men, and our history really begins with the first writings that happened in the past, about 7,000 years ago. So really, we don't have much real personal accounts of history before then. Before then, we depend on scientists and archaeologists looking into the past from the evidence left, in terms of various findings. Various findings of people who lived before, say, 10,000 years ago. So welcome to Asunda Lombardia. So that's where we're at. But today we're about the year 800, and I've been watching the Viking series. That's quite a long series too. And it's about 800. We're talking about the Danes, the Vikings era here. And the Danes and Alfred, King Alfred became known as the great King Alfred of Britain. What an incredible person, really, ruler as well. He was able to make England one. There were 7 kingdoms, and he managed to start unifying the various tribes, if you like. Okay, so that's where we're at. Now, there are a few little announcements that I want to make because I want to encourage people to actually come to see me where I am at particular times, because most of the time I'm at Insegna. At Insegna, there in North Coburg, and people who want to see me should send me an email and come down if you want to. But generally, not many people do, and it's... a lot of my work now is online and on the shelves in terms of trying to provide books. I use modern technology a lot. So I can understand people who don't read books, but really it's a mistake if you have grandchildren or if you have children not to have a little section in the house where you have books there for them, because the touch and feel of the books gives a different perspective. In terms of history, it would be worthwhile also to, I'm doing world history, to actually get some books about the various histories of the world from different parts of the world. So that's where we're at. I hope that, I can inspire a few people. But really, when I do these things, I do them for me, with you in mind. I always have other people in mind, believe it or not. And I don't know why, but it's always been like that. I can't keep things to myself. It's probably the teacher in me. That's probably why I ended up as a teacher. But then I've discovered the importance of handling one's life on one's own as well. And it's important that we develop some intellectual activity so that when we are on our own, we are happy with ourselves And can I say to Rosemary, I appreciate everything that Rosemary Vecchias does, because she seems to have this sort of mentality as well. And it's good. And a few other people that I know, but, you have to go on Facebook or Instagram, or now even TikTok, or this and that. There are many platforms, but I've chosen Facebook from the beginning, and I'm pretty loyal. So that's where I am at the moment. Today we're going to do quite a few things. I'm going to do some work from, men and women making history, then Chinese history. We're going to go to America. We'll then go to the indigenous history before the invasion, what we call the invasion, and also, of course, to our friends Banjo Patterson, Henry Lawson, and finally my trip to the north. I'll show you a few things. I couldn't. I'm having problems with the computer lately, so I'm too scared to go from one thing to another in case I lose my material halfway and then whatever. So I will be showing you. Quite a few of the pics. Maybe there's some footage there as well from my trip to Darwin, through Catherine, down to Broome, and then Perth again. Very interesting. I enjoyed it, and I hope you too enjoy the pics and the footage that I provide. Okay, it's 11:31. We're going to start, and here we go. The Danes and Alfred. Danes and English kindred peoples. Okay. The Danes were very much the same kind of people as the English themselves had been at the time of their invasion of Britain, 300 years earlier. They worshipped the same heathen gods, and their languages were so similar that an Englishman could follow the drift of a conversation in Danish and vice versa. They called them heathen gods. I don't know, gods like the Romans had and the Greeks had and other parts of the world had, gods to deal with the Almighty. You can't see him, and then you need other people. There's a God for war, a God for love, a God for this, a God for that. But when Christianity arrived, well, the Jews started first, with the one God idea that developed with Christianity as well, and with the Muslims. Different ways of looking at the one God, but basically it's the same one all around. So widespread fear of the Vikings. Each summer from their homelands in Norway, Sweden and Denmark, they rowed out to sea in their long ships to plunder. They would go in and they would take whatever they could, especially from the churches. In the 9th and 10th centuries, there was hardly a corner of Europe that did not receive unwelcome visits from these fierce pirates, who were as much at home on the sea as on dry land. They knew the sea. I mean, they came from the north. Pretty tough people. In every Christian country, priests led their congregation into prayer. From the fury of the Northmen, good Lord, deliver us. But in the end, the Northmen became part of, they converted to Christianity. We need peace in the world. You can't have pirates all the time. So when there's good land, you can grow things. Why do you have to go away? This is why we love our home. Norsemen colonized Iceland and Greenland. Now, as the years passed, many of the Vikings who had come to a country as raiders stayed as conquerors, just as the English had done. But they stayed, but they took on a lot of the laws and the customs of the people they conquered. So they were conquered themselves. A bit what's happening to us here in Australia as Italo Australians or any other ethnic group. You come, you invade, if you like. I don't have any fears about the word invasion, because all countries have been invaded many times, and worse things have happened in other parts of the world than what has happened to the indigenous people here. centuries of slavery and you name it, cruelty, plus. So, looking at history, I suggest that to our Indigenous friends that you should really start reading some of the history from other parts of the world and appreciate the fact that, people did come to Australia, and Australia is today where it is because of them. As otherwise, you could have had other invaders here rather than the people from Europe. The Chinese were here about 500-600 years before. The Europeans came, and they came and went. And so did Captain Cook. And so did the Danish people. The people from Holland came and settled, they came to Tasmania, and then they went. Tasman. So there's no invasion unless you stay where you visit. So the people who stay are very brave, really. But the people who say, oh, no, this is not for me, they go back or they want to do other things. That's it. They are real like tourists. They come and go. And if you can trade, so much the better. So Norsemen colonised Iceland and Greenland, very cold countries. As the years passed, many of the Vikings who had come to a country as raiders stayed as conquerors, just as the English had done. The map on this page shows you where this happened. You will marvel at the courage of these old seafarers who, with their wives and children, made their way across the bitterly cold northern seas to Iceland and Greenland. Their descendants are still living in Iceland today, though the colonists in Greenland died out after 100 years or so. And in the Viking series you see this. But let's not forget, then through Greenland they went to America as well. One Norse fleet led by Leif Erikson went even further and discovered America. So this is the first time I've seen the name of Leif Erikson being named. And the Vikings discovered America about 990 AD, so just under 1,000 years. Well, they discovered America. The Americans were already there from about 12 centuries before, 12,000 years before. They came down, the Paleolithic people, and this one I'm doing at the moment, when the Beringia Bridge, if you like, Asia and North America were united by ice. The big animals went to the Americas, both north and south, and the people followed. The old Neolithic people followed. So when we say somebody discovered something, it's already been there. It's already there. They discovered for themselves, for the country that they. So when we go, for example, when we go to the moon or to Mars or to one of those planets, and let's say the Russians get there, and there are some people there, up in a particular planet. So we've discovered the planet. And it's like we've gone home, we've discovered the planet, but there are people there already. So what can we take from them? That's the idea. So the discoveries is for yourself. I discover a lot of things every day that I don't know. So I discover them for me. So have a look at these words, invasion, discovery, what they mean. In the Americas now, they're getting rid of a lot of statues, etc., around the world because of, the slave masters. Some people really feel this sort of very bad historical period. But they were there. The minute you get rid of them, you want to forget them. Isn't it better to remember and say this was wrong? And you've got evidence of it. And it's a political thing, so it's my one opinion against many others. Or as many others exist. So, and discovered America. And he named what? He named what? And he named Vinland. 500 years before Columbus. Vinland. All these voyages were made without a compass, in ships not much bigger or stronger than the surf boats at Australian beaches. Surf boats? No, they're much bigger. Come on. Norsemen conquer Russia, Normandy as well. Another band of Vikings who called themselves the Rus sailed for far inland along the rivers of Eastern Europe and founded the Kingdom of the Rus, or Russia, as it came to be known. Northmen also conquered that part of France which is still called after them Normandy. Norman, Northmen, Normandy. Like the conquerors of Russia, these Vikings learned the language of their new country, so that when a couple of centuries later William, Duke of Normandy, invaded England, he and his followers spoke French. And that's what our Indigenous people have to do too. I was speaking to someone who knows quite a lot about languages. Now, the Indigenous people didn't have an alphabet. They depended on pictures, etc. But it's not as precise as the language. And in the north part of Australia, I was so happy to see that the Indigenous languages existing had been written in Romanized forms. So I was able to read some of those languages there. Now, the point is, like in Europe, you've got many languages that are very different from each other. You can't own your own language. It's my language. Of course, it's my language, but you should make it available to the rest of your people and the rest of the world. Why shouldn't I be speaking Pitjantjatjara or whatever? I want to learn these things. Why shouldn't I be able to produce books in those languages? Do I have to need permission to produce books about Indigenous people, etc.? From my point of view, no. But some people would say, no, you have to follow the rules. Well, let's free up this idea of freeing the rules. Because there are certain things that belong to humanity as a whole. I encourage our Indigenous people to learn Italian, to learn French, to learn Spanish, Chinese, whatever language. Why not? And that way, then, when you speak your own language or you want to write in the language of your birth, of your family, of your community, then you're able to bring in this extra knowledge into it. Language is very important. It's a very political tool, a very powerful tool, but very political as well. But language needs to be shared. That's why I come on, and I thought in my later years now, I think, you know what, I'm going to do this online. And I encourage other people to do the same. No skin off my nose. Instead of 100 people doing Italian online, there are 5,000. The more, the merrier. And French, and Spanish, all languages. If you know it, share it. So that's it for today in terms of the Danes and Alfred. Next week, I'll be doing Alfred. And if you watch the Viking series, this is really part of it. So look up the Danes, Alfred, Vikings on, and even on YouTube. They're beautiful. They're beautiful documentaries, the beautiful series. It's wonderful what we have. Okay, so it's 11:43 now. Yes, we've done pretty well today with this one here. So from here, so next week I will be doing, I'll continue here with Alfred, and now it's the turn of China. And this is very interesting too, Chinese history. Because, we always think from a European point of view in our culture, but people in other cultures, they look at it from their point of view. Okay, today is the turn of Zhang Hang. a pioneering scientist from China. He was born in 78 AD, after the birth of Christ, to 139. 78, that's 22 and 39. So he died at 61. Okay. Zhang Hang was born in Nanyang, Henan province. And again, let's have a look at the provinces of China again, so we learn which ones they are. He was one of the world's first astronomers. Well, if you ask the Greeks, they had some, and the Egyptians, they had some people too there. So everyone writes history from their point of view. He was also a learned mathematician. So was Pythagoras. He was appointed as an official with historiographic duties and was also in charge of drawing up the calendar and observing astronomical phenomena. We're talking about China under the various dynasties. He developed an armillary sphere on which were carved all the astronomical phenomena known at the time. Contrary to the popular belief at that time, Zhang Hang maintained that earthquakes were not signs of heaven's anger, but natural disasters. We have the same views about our scientists today. But the scientists hold their ground because it's logical, it's based on evidence rather than belief. Let's not forget the difference between evidence and belief. If you go for too extreme from one or the other, you're in the wrong place. You need the two. As a result of careful observations of earthquakes, he invented a seismograph in 132 after the birth of Christ, which was the world's first instrument to identify and ascertain the direction of earthquakes. When an earthquake occurred in February 138, a bronze ball fell from the mouth of the carved dragon's head westward on the instrument, facing the direction of the epicenter of the earthquake into the mouth of a bronze toad below. It's a big paragraph, that one. A big mouthful. A bronze ball fell from the mouth of the carved dragon's head westward on the instrument, facing the direction of the epicenter of the earthquake into the mouth of a bronze toad below. Not a comma in there at all. Nothing. They could have. When we write English, however, what we do, we write shorter sentences, easier to manage. Since it could not be felt in Luoyang, the capital, it was believed deceitful. It was not believed until several days later, when it was reported that an earthquake occurred in the southeastern Gansu province. So you got to look at the Henan province, Gansu province. Gansu province get the earthquake, and the seismograph machine that Zhang Hang had constructed recorded it. That's pretty good. It was the first instrument to observe earthquakes in human history. It was not until the 13th century that similar instruments appeared outside of China, in Europe, of course. Welcome to Antonio Danzi. Now, in Europe, of course, because by the time of the 13th century, we are just before the Renaissance period in Europe. And so the science is coming forward. It was, at the end of the Dark Ages, into the Middle Ages, the first Crusades that had occurred, etc., etc. So, if you have no concept of historical events outside of your own country, when I'm speaking, unfortunately, it will sound a little bit muffled. So you need people who want to do history, want to learn a little bit more about history, and the way to do it is to actually to actually get interested in it. Again, if you are interested in coming to see me, I have quite a few books about history, etc. I don't necessarily sell the ones, I keep one copy for me. So I have a whole warehouse. Most of it is mine. I only sell what I want to sell, of course, because for me, having books is my riches. I can access. I don't have to go anywhere. I can access what I've got. But people say, "Well, you don't need that. You know, all you need is your iPhone." You go Google it and yes, but there's a difference between Googling something and having a whole heap of notes and books, etc., that you can leave there and come back to at another time. Yeah, you can do the same with the computer, sure, but you have to enter it. You got to remember. So it's a question of, again, culture. If the culture is for you to move towards this area here of technology. So if schools take on just that, I think they're doing the kids a disservice. I truly believe you need everything. You need to know how fire started, just in case you're in a desert on your own, a survival kit, if you like. You need to know how to cook, not just on the stove, electric stove or gas stove, but also on fire. Anything, impara l'arte e mettere da parte, learn something, that's the Italian way, learn something and put it aside. So that's when we change jobs and people think, I've lost my job, but you get an opportunity to get another one. And that's important. And that it's painful at the beginning, but then as you move on, you appreciate. Do you forget the old job? You know, some of the things you learned there remain with you. Now, let's look at North and South America. We're talking about now, last week we did the glaciers. Okay, this week is climate and biological environments. Now, a lot of the language here is very technical. This is written obviously by experts to do with data, and as I read it, I'll point it out. Climate and biological environments in North and South America. The paleoclimates, paleo means old, the oldest one. Neo means new, but the new is 15,000, 20,000. Paleo, it's 1 million years ago. The paleoclimates and vegetation of eastern Siberia and Alaska during the Wisconsin glaciation have been deducted from high-resolution oxygen isotope. Now, I don't remember the glacial, the thing is here, what they said, the Wisconsin glaciation. Let's say just a glaciation. They call it the last glacial maximum, etc. Because prior to the last glacial maximum, climates in eastern Siberia fluctuated between conditions approximating present-day conditions and colder periods. The last glacial maximum, LGM they called it, warm cycles in Arctic Siberia saw flourishes of megafaunas. The oxygen isotope record from the Greenland ice cap suggests that these cycles, after about 45,000 years, 45,000 years, well, BP lasted before Christ, lasted anywhere from hundreds to between 1,000 and 2,000 years, with greater duration of cold periods starting from 32,000 years before the birth of Christ. The pollen record from Alikchan Lake, north of the Sea of Okhotsk, shows a marked shift from tree and shrub pollen to herb pollen prior to 26,000 years before the birth of Christ. As herb tundra replaced the boreal forest and shrub steppe going into the last glacial maximum. So if we get a lot of a lot of ice, our vegetation shrinks. It needs warm. It's the opposite is true, of course. A similar record of tree shrub pollen being replaced with herb pollen as the last glacial maximum approached was recovered near the Kolyma River in Arctic Siberia. Kolyma River, I never heard of it. The abandonment of the northern regions of Siberia due to the rapid cooling or the retreat of game species with the onset of the last glacial maximum has been proposed to explain the lack of archaeosites in that region dating to the last glacial maximum. It's about 32,000 years before the birth of Christ. The pollen record, or even more. The pollen record from the Alaskan side shows shifts between herb shrub and shrub tundra prior to the LGM, suggesting less dramatic warming episodes than those that allowed forest colonization on the Siberian side. Diverse, though not necessarily plentiful, megafauna were present in those environments. Megafauna, the animals. Herb tundra, megafauna, fauna and flora, yeah. Okay. Herb tundra dominated during the last glacial maximum due to cold and dry conditions. Coastal environments during the last glacial maximum were complex. The lowered sea level and isostatic bulge equilibrated with the depression beneath the Cordilleran ice sheet. This ice sheet here caused the sea, eventually when it warmed up, to rise up to 100 meters above where it was before. It's incredible. So a lot of what would be termed land, the ice, etc., like mountains, etc., then sort of water rose. So submerged, but created a marine environment. Exposed the continental shelf to form a coastal plain. While much of the coastal plain was covered with Piedmont glaciers, unglaciated refugiae supporting terrestrial mammals have been identified on Haida Gwaii, Prince of Wales Island, and outer islands of the Alexander Archipelago. Whoever wrote this loved to find the extra words, Piedmont glaciers. You know, you got to Piedmont in Italy, you can see the mountains. That's where Piedmont, the tallest mountain in Europe, Mount Blanc, which belongs to the French according to them. But, Monte Bianco in Italiano, no? Never mind. The now submerged coastal plain has potential for more refugia. That's from the Latin. Refuge, whatever is left. Pollen data indicate mostly herb, shrub, tundra vegetation in unglaciated areas, with some boreal forest towards the southern end of the range of Cordilleran ice. The coastal marine environment remained productive, as indicated by fossils of pinnipeds. Never heard of these words. The highly productive kelp forests over rocky marine shallows may have been a lure for coastal migration. Reconstruction of the southern Beringian coastline also suggests potential for a highly productive coastal marine environment. So in other words, you get hot and cold, hot and cold. Do you cook the earth or do you put ice on it? Well, there we are. This is called, the next one, next time I'll do environmental changes during the deglaciation. So we've had ice and then we have warming periods. Now we're scared of the warm periods because with the rise of the oceans, waters, a lot of the islands are going to disappear in the Pacific and elsewhere as well. Pretty tough. Where do I put this? Here. Okay, now, before the invasion. Before the invasion, if you remember from the last one, and if you haven't followed me before, just go to my podcasts. They are on YouTube. The best place to find them is in Insegna.com in the blog section. You got the shop, you get the languages, but then you go further down and you got blog. There's a little like triangle on the side. Press on that, then you get the four podcasts available one after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. You work your way up when you're cooking or whatever, listen to it, and then you move along. I'm not repeating this again. So that's it. And I also listen to them sometimes. Now, we were talking about women and men in the way they behaved before the invasion, okay? And here we go. We're talking about marriage of young men. So in the Central Desert, the mothers of the boys and girls were also consulted about this choice. They didn't, with the first marriage, it was all arranged by the elders. But once the girl was divorced or, then in the second marriage, they could choose, basically. Because when you're young, people come in on you. Pitjantjatjara Youth, Central Australia, there's a headband. This headband, after he has been through the first part of his initiation rites, notice the fresh scars on his arm. Okay. For many days, there were important ceremonies. Some of them were out in the bush with the men alone. But for others, the whole community joined together. Each person had a part to play according to his or her relationship to one or the other of the youths, of the young people. The novices remained in their own separate camp, and between the ceremonies they were instructed by the older men in the mysteries of their religion. They had also to learn the songs which might have 100 verses or more, because they didn't write. So the songs was a way of telling the past. To forget the words or to sing them in the wrong order was a crime that called for a severe beating. Well, you didn't learn it properly. I couldn't do that when I did the theatre. People learn their parts, and sometimes, including me, when you were performing, you forget. Never mind. These songs and their myths describe the travels and exploits of the ancestral heroes. The boys not only learned the songs and myths, but also the geography of the country over which the heroes had travelled. The journeys had been from waterhole to waterhole in the desert, so it was in this way that the boys were taught how to find water. After this part of the initiation, with its physical ordeals, was over, they were taken by a group of initiated men on journeys through their own tribal territory, and that of their neighbours too. Thus they met many other groups of people who welcomed the boys and their guardians. And I'm going to stop there. Okay? Thus they met the groups of people. So from, the ceremonies, then the older people took them around, showed them the geography of the place. Presumably that's why Australia was divided into about 150 nations, tribes, whatever. They were Neolithic villages, Neolithic, but nomadic primarily. They were searching for food all the time. And if they found it and it was plentiful in an area, they stayed there for longer. Okay, so that's this part here. Very interesting indigenous history before the invasion, but let's not forget this was like they were, like in Africa, in Europe, thousands of years before. They were basically hunter-gatherers. They were looking for food all the time because they did not have agriculture. So these are the things that when you don't need to, why should you do a plot of land when you've got so much land on which you can find food easily? And that's the difference. Think about now the people, our indigenous problems here in Australia relate to the fact that this new culture that from the one family, we all brought something to the table. You can't say I brought more and I brought less. You can't say this is mine and yes, it is yours. Yes, in an environment where you've got plenty of, there are only a few people, you don't need the rules that you need in a city. So the laws come where they are needed. For example, because of our cars, we've got the roads now, we've got all the other facilities now. Before, we used to go into the city, park the car anywhere. Now, there's a charge. So all these developments are to do with managing an ever increasing, more densely populated area. And unless you want, civil war, and you want the people have to abide by the laws of the government. But the laws of the government aren't always perfect. Therefore, you have to have a bit of, common sense as well, which is not so common. Banjo Patterson. Let me drink again. For some reason, very dry. Okay. Come by Chance. That's another one of Banjo's poems. Again, these things here need explanations as well. So if you want this, Banjo Patterson, go to your library, local library, and say, what have you got of Banjo Patterson? A.B. Patterson. Good poet. Come by Chance. As I pondered very weary over a volume long and dreary, for the plot was void of interest, it was that postal guide, in fact. There I learned the true location, distance, size, and population of each township, town, and village in the radius of the act. And I learned that Pakawiji stands beside the Murrumbidgee, and that Bulleroy and Bumble get their letters twice a year. Also that the post inspector, when he visited collector, closed the office up instanta and reopened it dangalia. He closed it instantaneously and dangalia later. But my languid mood forsook me when I found a name that took me. Quite by chance I came across it. Come by chance was what I read. No location was assigned it, not a thing to help one find it, just an N, which stood for northward, and the rest was all unsaid. So come by chance and an N. I shall leave my home and forthward wander stoutly to the northward, through the northward, till I come by chance across it, and I straightway settle down. For there can't be any hurry, nor the slightest cause for worry, where the telegraph don't reach you, nor the railways run to town. Those were the times, huh? Railways building and telegraphs. And once letters and exchanges come by chance across the ranges, where a wiry young Australian leads a pack horse once a week. Why pack horse? Because he's riding, so as one gets tired, gets on to the next one and the next one. And they carry the mail as well. And the good news grows by keeping, and you are spared the pain of whipping. Or the bad news when the mailman drops the letters in the creek. But I fear, and more's the pity, that there is really no such city. For there's not a man can find it of the shrewdest folk. No, come by chance, be sure it never means a land of fierce endeavour. It's just the careless country where the dreamers only go. So come by chance is a figment of the imagination. Though the work and toil and hustle in our life of haste and bustle, all that makes our life worth living, come unstriven for and free, many may weary and importune, but the fickle goddess Fortune deals him out his pain, or pleasures careless what his worth may be. All the happy times entrancing, days of sport and nights of dancing, moonlight rides and stolen kisses, pouting lips and loving glances. When you think of this, be certain you have looked behind the curtain. You have had the luck to linger just a while longer in come by chance. So come by chance, whatever happens to you. Here, there you are. You don't know what I'm doing. There. I had to scratch my head. All right, that's Benja Pedersen for you. I hope you understood a bit of that, but, you know, that's how it is. Henry Lawson. Now, Henry Lawson, another good writer, but he's a short story writer. Henry Lawson. And this book here, I think, yeah, I picked up somewhere. Okay. Now, this is The Drover's Wife. We're coming to the end of it. I've got this part here today. Maybe next week I'll need more time to finish it off. So The Drover's Wife, I'll finish it off next week. I'll give myself more time and I'll do it, okay? So here we go. From last week, where we said womanly or sentimental side of nature. Right? It must be near morning now, but the clock is in the dwelling house. Her candle is nearly done. She forgot that she was out of candles. Some more wood must be got to keep the fire up. And so she shuts the dog inside and hurries round to the wood heap. The rain has cleared off. She seizes a stick, pulls it out, and crash, the whole pile collapses. It's a stick from the bottom. Yesterday she bargained with a stray blackfella to bring her some wood. A stray blackfella, huh? And while he was at work, she went in search of missing cow. She was absent an hour or so, and the native Black made good use of his time. On her return, she was astonished so to see a good heap of wood by the chimney that she gave him an extra fig of tobacco and praised him for not being lazy. He thanked her and left with head erect and chest well out. He was proud of what he had done. He was the last of his tribe and a king, but he had built that wood heap hollow. So he built the wood heap. It looked big, but inside there was nothing there because it would light a lot better. She's hurt now, and tears spring to her eyes as she sits down again by the table. She takes up a handkerchief to wipe the tears away, but pokes their eyes with her bare fingers instead. The handkerchief is full of holes, and she finds that she has put her thumb through one and her forefinger through another. This makes her laugh to the surprise of the dog. She has a keen, very keen sense of the ridiculous. And sometimes or other she will amuse Bushmen with a story. She has been amused before like that. One day she sat down to have a good cry, as she said, and the old cat rubbed against her dress and cried too. Then she had to laugh. So this is all about, bringing humour to a humorless situation. Amazing. So that's it. I'm going to give myself a bit of time so I can show you a little bit of Northern Australia, and next week will be the other way around. I'll do less of that and more of this. So the next time it'll be the end of the drover's wife, which is a long, short story. Page 19 to page 26. It's written in small letters. Here it is. There, see the drover's wife? The writing is very small. Okay. Now let me see if I can. I didn't put the Chinese book away. Okay. If I can go to my, yes. Here we are. Okay. Well, I was lucky this time. I've got it in front of me. So now I will use this with the explanations. Okay, so here we go. We'll start where I left off last week. Last week we were in front of this building here. And the computer, of course, taking its time to bring it up. That's computers for you. I need a fast one. I'll get it soon. Okay, so here we go. There you are. That's the building that Andrew and I had to find to meet the others and catch the bus. So here, because we went on our own way and we walked right to this place. Okay, let's go. This was the inside. When I got in, of course, inside, and it's a beautiful, it was a beautiful building. And of course, these pictures attracted me. Look at that. Well, beautiful, huh? And more of the indigenous art on display. Fantastic. And of course, now we took the bus and we were going to a museum. There you are. That's how you do it when, and it's IMDC, Design Construction. That's the building. Museum and Art Gallery, Northern Territory. These are as you enter, you get these pictures of the shells and other. Here, more shells that you find there. More shells again. Different types. And then the birds, different types of birds. There they are, see? That you find in Northern Territory. And these are more, of course. Okay. There's always somebody who wants to film this. And this me here, of course, a bit of a memory. That's the bird, see? different types. And there's more. Look at this. So we have a lot of, different types of birds in Australia, and I'm sure they're not, to be seen everywhere else. There's a big one here. Another one. It's wonderful. And of course, butterflies. Look how many types. Just to collect all these. Amazing. And of course, the rocks. Different types of rocks. And this indigenous Aboriginal art telling the story. Okay, that was the indigenous way of passing knowledge from one generation to the next and beyond. Well, of course, I had to get into the picture. Okay, here we go. Now, that's a good friend. Crocodile Country. Sweetheart. Estuarine crocodile, Crocodilus porosus. Big one, huh? Look at that. That crocodile eats me, or will I eat the crocodile? Well, can I tell you, I had a crocodile burger. Beautiful. Delicious. Estuarine crocodile, etc. You can look them up. Estuarine crocodile. Okay, and the sizes, etc. We haven't got time. Then indigenous art inside, plenty more. And there's Angela there, and me. You want to get a couple of, and of course, here, these are paintings. Paintings. Now, I like that. See that? Gapu damuranja, gapu pinidia, dual, yol nual nidia, nurung nun gamuru, nurukuni, wol na nija, napurunga la nam. No. So you have to work out here. Napuru. Is it Puru or Paru? Well, it has to be Napuru. Purun Gala. And is it no or now? Saltwood and freshwood are very important in Yolngu people's lives. So these are the Yolngu people's lives. And there are some pictures there. Okay, I was interested in the language. I don't know whether this language here can't see it properly. No. And this was downstairs. They set up all this. This is from way back. This is Australia there. Very interesting place, this part. Look how nice it is. See that? And here, more the fish. The shark up there. And this one here attracted me. Australia with, okay. So that's, and there's more here. Very interesting. Look at the floor. Really quite a beautiful side if you've never seen it before. And then I went from the other side. There it is. Now, Alpa ununi ga dual jama mala ga gunga yuna wui malnitunya. So what Alpa helped create a successful enterprise, and it's still happening today. Alpa. So Alpa must be a company of some sort. Gumurra Maniji. Gumurra Maniji. Manapan Mirjama. Gumurra Maniji. Manapa Mirjama. Now, these are Romanized alphabet carrying indigenous wealth of culture, which we can all share. Now, I would like to see schools teaching indigenous languages freely, without any interferences. That way, all the languages that we have in Australia can be shared and be part of the great cultural traditions we are building now for the future. There you are. A bit of a challenge to our Indigenous people. You have to work it out. We can't work it out for you. Each group is separate, you know. Okay. There you are. This was from prehistoric times. These are the lizards and the snakes and everything else. And it's beautiful to visit this place. And these are the various types of fish available there. You don't want to get in front of one of those. Yet we eat them. So who's going to be scared of who? There you are. And now this is whatever. Transformations. The changing nature of the territory. This gallery is about diversities and place and why the Northern Territory fauna is the way it is. The geological history and climate of Northern Australia have influenced the evolution of the animals and plants that we see today in the Northern Territory, etc., etc. So interested in Northern Territory, geography and history, go for it. This one here, what's this? Nature and climate in the top end. Look at it. Beautiful. What's this? January. Monsoon. February. Grass. March. May. Knock them down. Barramundi. Dry. Oh, that's got nothing there. It must be winter. And that's hot. That's what that is, hot. And then Dalranga, hot ground, Balba, monsoon again. So that's really the transformation, how the territory transforms from 1 month to the next over the year. And this, of course, we went for a coffee and sandwich, whatever. Okay. That was the place. That was the bus waiting for us. Now we go from there somewhere else. Where do we go from here? Let's have a look. 12:27. Well, I think I've done well in explaining all that, and it's 12:28. So we'll stop here. This is obviously the next lot, which I will show you next time. So come again next week. Thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in today. And can I say that a lot of people now are coming. A lot of people are coming to watch these podcasts on Facebook alone. They're about around 80 to 100, and one of them has got 180. But what I'm saying is the idea of these presentations here is to also include something of Australia into the history program that I'm preparing each week. but it's part of the World History series. Okay, what have you noticed about these programs in the last few weeks? That I've neglected, the Arctic, North and South, mentioned through the Vikings. Europe has been covered a little bit. Asia through China, but not the others. America, North America, and the South America, Central America I did before. South America might come late. Africa, I haven't done much on Africa. They were the most successful continent in the Neolithic age, the African history, and they created many kingdoms. But again, you have to get interested into it in order to learn about it. You have to get interested in history first. World history is very interesting. And you can see the way various parts of the world develop in different ways. And that's what I'm hoping that we can achieve together, that you become interested in this. Okay, and on this note, I just want to say, please tell other people, your friends, to go on my Insegna.com for this particular program. Also for Italian lessons. I'm doing Italian literature from the very beginning, from Roman times now, Italian language and literature, because literature depends on the language. So I mentioned the language from the very beginning, and we're working our way through until the modern times. It's each century. We're moving along comfortably. And next week will be 43, lesson 43. Then I also have French and Spanish on a Friday. And the reason why I do Spanish is to show people just how hard it is to learn another language, even if you're a language teacher like me. It takes a long time and patience to conquer even the most basic of conversations like a native. But you can have a lot of fun with French and Spanish by learning the songs, doing the sketches, a bit of theatre. You don't need to really be French in order to enjoy French or France or the history of France, etc. And finally, there is Dante Alighieri. I've finished Inferno. The explanations are there, the beginnings. Now I'm doing Purgatorio, and I think Canto 8 or Canto 9 this coming Sunday. And what else do? I do the songs with Dora, and I sing them too for the lyrics of songs in all this. Some of the picks that I take around Victoria or in clubs. So there's quite a bit in there in the 4 hours. You don't have to go to it all the time, but occasionally tune in into TomPadulaTV on YouTube or look me up on the podcast. On that note, grazie mille, thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Let's hope everything goes well. And for now, I finished. Ciao a tutti. Okay, from Tom Padula of TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers. And now, press the finish button.